Welcome to Honestly Rated, and today we'll be talking about your favorite booty plunderer, Washbuckler. Washbuckler is a swapper that you got with your game, hopefully, and you know what, he's pretty cool, and I feel like a lot of people out there might have a good amount of nostalgia for him. So today we're going to take a look at his overall design and gameplay to really see is the nostalgia worthy for a character that might be good or bad. But before we jump into the gameplay, let me give you Washbuckler's lore. When growing up, Washbuckler was a orphan mermasquid, whatever that entails. And he grew up on the roughest pirate ship out there in Skyland, doing not so nice things. But Washbuckler had different ideas when it comes to pirating and becoming a lot nicer, so while the crew started gaining a lot more respect for him and him eventually becoming captain, he decided, hey, let's turn this thing around. Let's be nicer than the bad guys and plumaging through these poor people's houses, and luckily his crew decided, yeah, but other pirates weren't so nice. You see, other pirates really don't believe in the whole being nice thing, so they decided that since this pirate was going to go against their ways, they were just going to sabotage him and make sure he went down. But like any good captain should, he made sure it didn't happen. He would fight with his crew and make sure the ship would never sink. And luckily Eon was able to see this, and you know, Eon being a cool guy, decided like, yo, you should join our crew, the Skylanders. And obviously Washbuckler said yes. The last thing I need to say is that if you want to see your Skylander potentially on the next Honestly Rated, leave it down in the comments. I like to pick off of them. If you want to see more of this type of content, there's a playlist in the description, and it has every single one that I've done right there. And if you would like to subscribe, that would be nice. I just hit 500, so thank everybody who has. And if you want to see that number get bigger, like I do, you know, just think about it. But these videos also come out every single Saturday, so if you want to check out next Saturday, there'll be another one waiting for you. With all that said and done though, let's see what those egg legs can really do. Starting us off, we have the Sword Slash and the Somersaulty. Washbuckler starting out is honestly really nice. He has a simple Sword Slash that does 54 damage at level 20, which is honestly pretty gnarly, and it's kinda quick. The only problem here is, how does he interact with enemies? Because obviously every single melee character has some type of thing to hopefully get towards the enemy without it being too much of a risk versus reward problem. And luckily, Washbuckler decides he wants to use his legs. And I'm not talking about walking. I'm talking about doing a somersault and laying every leg upon an enemy and knocking them back. This is super nice for crowd control. Just simply hunting down a target, knocking them back so they're on their feet and they can't hit you is always super nice. And again, it works for a bigger group of enemies. It's actually so good that realistically you don't even have to use your melee move. You could just keep spamming this move and just launch enemies back. And it's not like you're not doing a lot of damage. You're doing 56, which is actually higher than your normal Sword Slash for the initial hit that doesn't knock back, but then the rest of the hits do 40 but also do knockback. It's just a super nice starting moves that again work really well together to get you towards the enemy, to get enemies knocked down so you can hit them afterwards, and it's just overall pretty great. Bubble Blaster is the first move on the top half of Washbuckler, and honestly, it's a really nice move that honestly works really well for multiple reasons. It is a isolator at fact, and it is very good at doing it. It allows you to go up to any enemy that you really think is just causing you a bunch of problems, put them in the bubble, and just leave them there. They'll sit there and spin and think about what they've been doing and seeing how much of a naughty boy they've been. And eventually they'll pop out just because of time limits, and you can just go back and bubble them again and deal with everything else before you eventually come up to them and tell them you're gonna die. The other reason I enjoy this is that it acts as an obstacle for any other enemies. They can't walk through them, so they have to walk around them, behind them, and sometimes they get stuck. And the nice thing that this does is that it kind of makes a big glob of enemies in one single area, which allows you to use your kick right after, hitting every single one and doing massive knockback. It also allows you to just kind of use it as a projectile. It does 40 damage just straight up, so if you have any enemies far away, like spell punks or bigger enemies that you don't want to get too close to, you can just fire these things off. The only downside to this move is that it's somewhat slow, so you can't be firing every single enemy around, but it doesn't really seem to have a limit. I seem to bubble a lot of enemies, and it doesn't seem like other ones pop, so it's truly just kind of up to you to see which ones you want to do it, and honestly, that's pretty cool. I'm glad there's no limit on it. For the last two, we have the Blade Sail and Dangerous Waters. These two are actually really great upgrades to just kind of have as primaries. The first one, Blade Sail, allows you to do more damage with your sword and also gain a new ability with it, where if you hold the button, you're able to do a swift strike through the heart of any enemy you cease. It does really solid damage, doing 144 or even 216 with a crit, and it works really well with this whole moveset. We have a bubble that keeps enemies stationary from hitting you. Yeah, this just works out super well. It also works out with his legs because it knocks back, and speaking about knockback, it also does knockback of itself, what allows you to go into other things, like another bubble or the kicks themselves. Again, really great move here. And the other thing, it allows you to have a piranha inside the bubble, making it so it does overtime damage anytime an enemy is bubbled. This is also great because, you know, the initial 40 damage with the actual bubble itself is nice, but just having a reason to keep enemies in the bubbles and not instantly popping them is the piranhas. And it kind of creates for people to be like, oh yeah, I could just keep these guys here and just kind of let them get bit for a while. It's a really great move and really great upgrades overall. Now we get to talk about the Cutlass Captain, where we have Parlay Popper and First Mate Cutlass. This is a very simple yet very effective path to pick. Reason being is that we get extra damage for our sword. And I was really praising it from the beginning. So it doing now 77 and our dash doing 184 is actually really fucking crazy. The other thing that's about it is that we get a bubble shield. This bubble shield acts as a defensive and also offensive measure. The way it works is that anytime you bubble an opponent and you hit it with your sword, not with your feet, you'll get a bubble shield. This bubble shield actually adds more defensiveness, so you're taking less damage, which makes sense because it has the word shield in it. I'm hoping it's shielding me from something. And it also acts as a burst option or an explosive option, because anytime it pops, it just does damage to anything that's near you. It's a very simple, like I said, path, but it works really well. Having some defensive options in there for Washbuckler, since he's a melee character, is always nice. Taking less damage is always nice. And having it also do damage is, you know, pretty cool added on bonus. And also, again, just our sword doing extra damage, it makes that shit goes crazy. You can kill a lot of things just by simply charging up your move and holding them in the bubble as they watch the sword plunge into their heart and gets ripped out from the other side, which is, you know, pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Then we can also be the Bubble Buccaneer with Marooned and Captain of Pirate Bay. With this path, you are officially a bubble-blowing baby, and honestly, it's not too bad to be one, right? SpongeBob and Patrick are one, and I want to be one too, because the path is amazing. What it allows us to do is that anytime we hold down the bubble-blowing baby making cannon, we get to blow 2 big bubbles instead of 1 tiny one. The only downside by this is that we don't get any piranhas, but everything else is an upside. It does more damage. It does 131. It doesn't stop at one enemy. It goes through multiple enemies, bubbling everything in its sights, and it works out super well. It's just overall a really great projectile. Again, the only thing that's bad about it is that we don't get the piranhas in there, which is kind of weird because the move after this directly upgrades the piranhas to do more damage, which is kind of weird. I wish they would have made it so the piranhas were in the big one. Like, you would think a piranha would like a little bit more space instead of like those very confined bubbles, but whatever. It's really not that big of a deal because the way it's supposed to work and the way that it confines enemies is super good. And overall, it's a really great path. Both of these paths were really nice. So let's see if the Soul Gem can mimic these two. On the stormy seas, the ship rocks. And let me tell you, this ship rocks, and I really mean it. You get to throw a whole boat at somebody, or people, or enemies, your friends, wherever the fuck you want to throw it to, you can throw it at them. It does really solid damage, it does really good knockback, and overall, it's just a really great move. And again, with that bottom path, being able to bubble multiple enemies at one time and having to sail at them is amazing. It's the best feeling ever. You should do it sometime. So, yeah, really great move, really great Soul Gem. And that's really all I have to say. So, on to the bottom half of Washbuckler. First off, on the bottom half, we have Octo Lash and Deep Skin. This is going to be the first move that I actually give a miss for Washbuckler. Octo Lash is just not that great. It allows you to diddle people with your 2 tentacles, and it does 96 damage, which is nice, but it goes super slow. It's like every 2 seconds. It should be quicker. Like, he has 8 legs. Why is he only using 2? It just doesn't work well. I don't even know why you would even want to use it, because you have a sword that if you hold down, you do 100, and if you take the bubble option, you do 130 just by building up your bubbles. This is officially a move that doesn't just work. It just kind of stinks. The only reason you would use it is right in the beginning before you actually do a spin. But even than that, like, what's really the purpose? It's just additive damage that really doesn't matter too much, and it doesn't even go that far. The other nice thing, though, is the Deep Skin. Deep Skin gives Washbuckler at least a little bit more health, which is nice. So, overall, Octolash is going to make me lash out if I keep talking about it. So let's go on to the next. Last up on the primary, we have Inkjet. Inkjet actually makes Octolash good, but for different reasons. It's now a projectile, which is very nice. You can still use it as a melee. It doesn't do any additive damage or anything for doing it that way, though. So primarily use it as a projectile. But the cool thing that it does now is that it inks people and makes them temporarily blind by the game's description. But realistically, it's a stun. The stun is unique in the sense that it actually doesn't create them to be unstunned if you attack them. What I mean by that is that if you do a primary attack with no like knockback or anything like that, they'll stay stunned and you don't actually have to ink them again. This is really cool. Now, it's kind of weird that it's on the move that knocks people back, so it doesn't actually apply if you actually commit with the full type of somersault that you can do. But if you just use it as a very far away method to just stun people, then roll up on them with your legs, and then start swinging at them, it's a very nice additive damage that stuns them and works a lot better than Bubble, since the Bubble only works for one attack, but also is a lot riskier just because it comes out slower. You know, it works in that sense. I like it. I think it's cool. It's just a little bit weird on what move it's on. Now we get to go on to the supposed Tentacoolest path with Tentaclever and Sea Legs. I can see the vision with this path, but honestly, I think it fell flat on his face just a little bit. Tentaclever allows you to rapidly slap enemies when holding down the somersault button, and that's kind of what I wanted. I think Octo Glash was pretty shit, so it actually doing a faster, rapid pace here is kind of what I wanted. But they nerfed the damage of it so heavily. It's only doing 24, even with Sea Legs, which is supposed to up the damage of this move. And I don't know why. I think if it did 30, this would be a lot better move, and let me tell you why. I think this move is great in the sense of how it's designed. It allows you to shoot ink towards enemies and then rapidly hit them over and over. This is kind of just like, you know, make enemies stand still and then rapidly do really fast damage and kill them before they get back up. And that would work really nice, and I think that would have been a really nice pairing. But the problem that lies here is that when you get to higher levels, so something that's not normal or easy, like hard, which I play on for these videos, or nightmare, they just don't die fast enough or do enough damage to warrant being standing still and rapidly hitting enemies. And with the hit stop, it's harder to turn towards enemies if you didn't hit them with the ink. So I think if they did roughly 35 damage, this would have been a lot better. And again, I see the vision and I like the design of it, just the damage makes it kind of off-putting. Then we go on to the bottom half of the bottom half with Ink Artist, where we have Ink Trail and This Will Never Come Out. I will say that this path is pretty similar to the top path and how I kind of want to work, but honestly it just kind of does it a lot better. What this allows it to do is that anytime you do a somersault, you'll shoot ink out of your ass, and it'll go behind you. This time it's actually a big ball instead of 2 projectiles, and it does less damage, but it does a cumulative damage over time. And it works pretty well. It even stuns enemies still, and you can still shoot out the ones in the front if you hold down the button. This is just pretty cool to get people off your back. If any enemies you miss, they'll just get hit by it, and they'll get stunned. And overall, it just kind of works better because then after that, you can hit them with your sword, which does a lot more damage than the 24. And this also does a lot more damage than 24. It does 56 if the enemies stay in it, which they're going to because they're stunned. So again, it's just a lot better in this path. The top one just doesn't work too well. Hopefully, the Soul Gem will be nothing like it. And sadly, it's exactly like it. Tentacle Carousel is just a different way of using your slap. I'll give it this though. It lets you move around. That's nicer just because at least you can somewhat try to make sure enemies don't hit you. But it does only 19 damage, and that sucks. Even if it did 20, even if it did 24 too, it still wouldn't be that great because of the same reason. There's just no reason to do it. Just use your sword. Your sword does a lot of damage, especially if you go with the top path of the top half. It just doesn't make sense why you want to use this. And I just think the bottom path with the ink is just a lot better. So even if the tentacle adds more damage, it doesn't really matter to me. I just don't think this is that great. I guess it's good for chompies and small enemies like that. But you have a whole ass boat on the top soul gem, which can kind of clear out a lot of enemies too. So I just personally don't really see the vision here. But with that, that is everything that Washbuckler had to see and offer. And honestly, he's pretty great. I really do enjoy him. I think he had a lot of cool stuff. And I think he really didn't have that many misses. I think his top path and his last soul gem was kind of a miss. But everything else was pretty cool. So honestly, I'm going to have to give Washbuckler a solid 4.5 out of 5. He's a really great character. And there's really not much to say because I really did enjoy everything of his. Again, I just think his spinny shit and his leg shit was a little bit of a miss. But overall, again, really great character. Thank you guys for watching. Leave down who you want to see next. And if you want to see some more honestly rated, probably the end screen here probably has a video and link and everything like that because I started doing that. But there's also in the description if I for some reason don't do that, which I'm pretty sure I should. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Leave down who you want to see next. And I hope to see you and everybody else in the next one. Peace.